Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about books. How many books I read in 2022. It is a rough estimate because I don't quite remember how many books and what books I read in 2022. I wrote some stuff down in my little book here. I read at least 8 books in 2022. My goal for 2023 is to read at least 6 to 8 books. At least 6 to 8 books. At least. It doesn't need to be that accurate, you know? It doesn't matter how many books I read. Anyways, let's talk about the books that I read in 2022. The first book that I read in 2022 was Handle with Care. I started that book on December 20th of 2021 and I read it until February 12th, 2022. So let's go to past Cora and she will read the back of the book for you. So I just wanted to talk about the book, Handle with Care. It's about this little girl who was born with brittle bone, OI. Her parents knew that she had OI, but it wasn't soon enough that they could abort the baby, I guess. And so now the parents are in a fight against the nurse who helped them with the baby, and going through a lawsuit at the moment for wrongful birth action. The nurse should have known way ahead that this baby would have OI. This child is so smart. She is like 5 years old and she reads at a grade 6 level. Like, she understands things. And so with her parents going through this lawsuit and having them argue back and forth about things, she knows what's going on. And so she's like, do they really want me? If they're going for this lawsuit, that means that they never wanted this child, technically, because they wanted to abort the baby if they knew that it had OI and it constantly having breaking bones and like hospital bills and all these types of bills. And so I think this child is very conflicted. Yeah, it's a lot. So that's what this book is about, and it's quite crazy. I'll read the back. Every expectant parent will tell you that they don't want a perfect baby, just a healthy one. Charlotte and Sean O'Keefe would have asked for a healthy baby too, if they'd been given the choice. Instead, their lives are consumed by sleepless nights, mounting bills, the pity party stares of luckier parents, and maybe worst of all, the what-ifs. What if their child had been born healthy? But it's all worth it because Willow is, well, funny as it seems perfect. She's smart as a whip, on her way to being as pretty as her mother, kind, brave, and for a 5-year-old, an unexpectedly deep source of wisdom. Willow is Willow, in sickness and in health. Everything changes, though, after a series of events forces Charlotte and her husband to confront the most serious what-ifs of all. What if Charlotte should have known earlier of Willow's illness? What if things have been different? What if their beloved Willow had never been born? To do Willow's justice, Charlotte must ask herself these questions and one more. What constitutes a valuable life? I finished Handle with Care last night. It was extremely emotional, but it was absolutely amazing. I cried. It's like the first book that's ever made me cry. So just be prepared for that. Next, I read House Rules, which is about an autistic boy who is helping the police to figure out what has happened to people, crimes. He helps solve these murders, mysteries, stuff like that, until he is suspected of committing murder. Because he's seen all these murders and what these people do. He's a smart boy. He can probably get away with it. So let's go to Past Cora again, and she will read the back of the book for you. I found this book, House Rules. They tell you I'm lucky to have a son who's so verbal, who is blisterily intelligent, who can take apart the broken microwave and have it working again in an hour. They think there is no greater hell than having a son who is locked in his own world, unaware that there's a wider one to explore. But try having a son who is locked in his own world and still wants to make a connection. A son who tries to be like everyone else but truly doesn't know how. Jacob Hunt is a teenage boy with Asperger's syndrome, also known as autism. He is hopeless at reading social cues or expressing himself well to others. And like many kids with autism, Jacob has a special focus on one subject. In his case, forensic analysis. Thanks to the police scanner he keeps in his room and telling the cops what they need to do. And he's usually right. But then his town is rocked by a terrible murder. For a change, the police come to Jacob with questions. All of the hallmark behaviors of Asperger's, autism, not looking anyone in the eye, stimulatory tics and twitches, flat effect, can look a lot like guilt to law enforcement personnel. Suddenly, Jacob and his family, who only want to fit in, feel the spotlight shining directly on them. For his mother, Emma, it's a brutal reminder for the intolerance and misunderstanding that always threatens her family. For his brother Theo, it's another indication of why nothing is normal because of Jacob. And over this small family, the soul-searching question looms. Did Jacob commit murder? That's what this book is going to be about. And, yeah. House Rules I started on February 13th, 2022. And I'm not 100% sure when I finished that book. That's kind of in between when I was starting to move into this place. So I don't know 100% sure when I finished it or my next book. So my next book, I am saying that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I'm not sure when I started that book or finished that book. Because I don't have any records of taking pictures of it or anything like that. I didn't start my Instagram page yet for my book reading, Cora Loves Books, so I don't know. So The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is about a lady who is married to 7 husbands and what her life is like with each of her husbands. And then she gets old and she asks this young woman to write about her life and her with her 7 husbands. And yeah, that's pretty much the book. So let me read the back of the book. Reclusive Hollywood icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant to write her story, no one is more astounded than Monique herself. Determined to use this opportunity to jumpstart her career, Monique listens in fascination. From making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s to leaving show business in the 80s, and of course the 7 husbands along the way, Evelyn unspools a tale of truthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. But as Evelyn's story nears its conclusion, it becomes clear that her life intersects with Monique's own in tragic and irreversible ways. Written by Reid's signature talent for creating complex, likable characters. Real simple. This is a mesmerizing journey through the splendor of old Hollywood into the sobering realities of the present day as 2 women struggle with what it means and what it costs to face the truth. Next, I read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This book kind of blew up on TikTok, and so everyone was talking about it. I'm like, I should probably get this book and read about it. I didn't get it. I bought it from my mom, and then she gave it to me to read, and then I gave it back to her. So I don't have that book to read the back of the book, but I might have a podcast episode with me reading the back of the book, so I'll see if I can find that. If not, it won't be in here. This book is about a girl who falls in love with an abusive person. Narcissistic, all the things. And it's about their relationship and stuff like that, and they have fights, blah, 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 blah. Everything that happens in an abusive relationship. Finally, she breaks out of the relationship and the abusive cycle, because her mom was in an abusive relationship, so she got into an abusive relationship, and so she is breaking that cycle. I think it's very important to learn about that stuff, and I do not have a podcast episode about it, so I went to Google and I Googled the back of the book. And so it says, Lily hasn't always had it easy, but it's never stopped her from working hard for the life she wants. She's come a long way from the small town in Maine where she grew up. She graduated from college, moved to Boston, and started her own business. So when she feels a spark of a gorgeous neurosurgeon named Riley Kincad, I don't know how to say his last name, everything in Lily's life suddenly seems almost too good to be true. Ryle is an assertive, stubborn, maybe even a little arrogant. He's also sensitive, brilliant, and has a total soft spot for Lily. But Ryle's complete aversion to relationship is disturbing. As questions about her new relationship overwhelm her, so do thoughts of Atlas, Corrigan, her first love, and a link to the past she left behind. He was her kindred spirit, her protector. When Atlas suddenly appears, everything Lily has built with Ryle is threatened. With this bold and deeply personal novel, Colleen Hoover delivers a heart-wrenching story that breaks exciting new ground for her as a writer. It ends with us is an unforgettable tale of love that comes at an ultimate price. And at the top of the book it says, sometimes the one who loves you is the one who hurts you the most. I started this book in July, somewhere in July, and I finished it August 14th. Anyways, the next book I read was Veridity by Colleen Hoover. This book was very interesting. It kept me wanting to read it. I kept wanting to know what's going to happen. This was kind of the first thriller book that I ever read, and I really enjoyed it. Lowen Ashley, not too sure how to say her last name, is a struggling writer on the brink of financial ruin when she accepted the job offer of a lifetime. Jeremy Crawford, husband of best-selling author Veridity Crawford, has hired Lowen to complete the remaining books in a successful series his injured wife is unable to finish. Lowen arrives at the Crawford home, ready to sort through years of Veridity's notes and outlines, hoping to find enough material to get her started. What Lowen doesn't expect to uncover is the chaotic office is an unfinished autobiography Veridity never intended for anyone to read. Page after page of bone-chilling admissions, including Veridity's recollection of the night her family was forever altered. Lowen decides to keep the manuscript hidden from Jeremy, knowing its contents could devastate the already grieving father. But as Lowen's feelings for Jeremy begins to intensify, she recognizes all the ways she could benefit if he were to read his wife's words. After all, no matter how devoted Jeremy is to his injured wife, a truth this horrifying could make it impossible for him to continue loving her. A standalone romantic thriller from #1's New York Times bestselling author Colleen Hoover. It's kind of a very fucked up book. That's all I can say. And you don't really know what's happening. So it's very interesting. I started that book August 15th and finished it on August 28th. So I finished that book super fast. It kept me wanting to be invested in it and finish it and know what happens. And then I read Wish You Were Here, which is one of the books that I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite books I think I've read so far. I started this book August 31st and I finished it September 29th, so it took me about a month to read. So let's read the back of the book. Diana O'Toole is perfectly on track, both personally and professionally. In her job in the art auction world, she's about to be promoted if she can close a deal with a high-profile client. And her boyfriend Finn, a surgical resident, is about to propose on a planned getaway to the Galapagos, days before her 30th birthday, right on time. But then a virus appears in the city on the eve of their departure. Finn breaks the news. It's all hands on deck at the hospital. You should still go without me, he says, especially since the trip is non-refundable. And so, reluctantly, she goes. Almost immediately, her dream vacation goes further awry. Her luggage is lost, the Wi-Fi is non-existent, and first the hotel and then the island themselves shut down to the pandemic. After being completely isolated, she forges a connection with a local family when a teenager, despite her father's suspicion of outsiders, confides in Diana. In the Galapagos Island, where Darwin's theory of evolution was formed, Diana finds herself examining her relationships, her choices, and herself, and wondering if she has begun to evolve into someone completely different. So, if you haven't noticed, this book is about the pandemic, about COVID, and the struggles and everything like that. And it was super awesome to read a book about it. Jodi Picoult is so good at researching, so good at being so realistic, not like Colleen Hoover where she is very not realistic. It's kind of just a very easy read. You don't really need to know much. It's just like you read it, you're done. Jodi Picoult really does her research and she really knows what she's talking about. So I really enjoy Jodi Picoult's because they are so realistic and you can imagine all the things that are happening. The next book that I read in 2022 was The Wish. It's about a cancer patient and just her telling her story about her life and everything to this person. And yeah. So The Wish is by Nicholas Sparks. I love Nicholas Sparks. He's a very good romance writer. In 1996, everything changed for Maggie Duanes. Sent away at 16 to live with an aunt she barely knew in Ocracoke, a remote village on North Carolina's Outer Banks. She could think only of the friends and family she left behind until she met Bryce Trickett, one of the few teenagers on the island, handsome, genuine, and newly admitted to West Point. Bryce showed her how much there was to love about the wind-swept beach town, and introduced her to photography, a passion that would define the rest of her life. In 2019, Maggie is a renowned travel photographer. She splits her time between running a successful gallery in New York and photographing remote locations around the world. But this year, she is unexpectedly grounded over Christmas, struggling to come to terms with her sobering medical diagnosis. Incredibly dependent on a young assistant, she finds herself becoming close to him. As they count down the days of the seasons together, she begins to tell him the story of another Christmas, decades earlier, and the love that set her on a course she never could have imagined. It was a very good book, but it took me a long time to get through. I read The Wish from September 29th to November 2nd. The last and final book that I read in 2022 was All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. I don't have that book with me. I gave it to my sister for her birthday, And I'm pretty sure I have a podcast episode about it. I might have me reading the back of the book, so I'll try and find that. But it's about a beautiful couple who is faced with infertility issues and having to overcome that, and her struggling to be able to tell herself that it's okay that she can't have children. She is very devastated because she knows that her husband really wanted children, but she can't give that to him. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. So I'm gonna read the back of the book. Can a love story with a perfect beginning survive a lifetime between two imperfect people? Then, the last thing Quinn expected was to meet the love of her life just outside her fiancé's front door. A year after leaving behind their cheating partners, Quinn and Graham are in a perfect relationship that seems designed by fate. Now, 7 years later, their perfect love is threatened by their imperfect marriage. The memories, the mistakes, and dreams that they have built over the years are tearing them apart. The one thing that could save them might also be the very thing that pushes their marriage past of no return. All Your Perfects is a powerfully moving story about a broken couple whose future hinges on promises made in the past, reminding us that the enduring power of love is an ultimate savior. But yeah, that is what I read in 2022. Now, I'm currently reading My Sister's Keeper. It is a very good book, but it has so many difficult topics in here that I am having a very hard time going through it. I am more than halfway through the book now, but I'm trying to read at least a chapter a night or half a chapter every night just to get through it. It is Jodi Picoult's first book that she ever wrote, and every page, every chapter is about a different person and with their own perspective of what's happening. And then you kind of have to remember what that other person said in other chapters. And it's hard. It's hard to keep up with. It's hard to track. But I am enjoying it. It's some very hard topics in here. And I think that might be the other reason why I'm having such a hard time with getting through My Sister's Keeper. The other books that I have on the schedule for 2023 is, of course, It Starts With Us. This is the second book of It Ends With Us, and it's about, I'm pretty sure, her love interest in the other book and their life together. That's what I'm guessing anyways. The next book that I have on my agenda is Jodi Picoult, Plain Truth. This is my mom's book. These three books right here are my mom's. I gave It Starts With Us and Layla for Christmas for her, and so this is a planned book for 2023, and then so is Plain Truth. I don't know anything about these books, but when the time comes, I will make another one of these videos and we will know. In 2024, I will make one of these about the 2023 books and how many I read. I love books. I love reading books. They're just so good to get away from your daily life and, you know, imagine someone else's life and what they're going through. So yeah, I love books. I hope that you enjoyed this video about books, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!